experience.
And I think that people have been indoctrinated.
All right, guys, we're going to get right into this video here. A career-ending debacle for Mr. Douglas Murray. Guys, he got absolutely destroyed by Dave Smith. I don't even know if this guy's even qualified anymore to debate regarding this topic. It was such an embarrassing 15 minutes. Let's get into it and break it down, man. This is just, jeez.
By very bad actors into this, and as a result have excused atrocities or will make excuses for them, make excuses for the people who do them. I think, in addition, it plays to some of the darkest things of the regional mind as well as the international mind. The aims of Hamas, their stated aims, include the annihilation of the Jewish people. And October the 7th, they had their best go at doing that. And the fact that in a decision between whether or not you're on the side of the people who want to dance and live in peace with their neighbors, or whether you're on the side of the people who want to rampage through a dance party bar in the early morning, macheteing at people, I find it amazing that there are so many people who don't know which side they're on. But there are a lot of them. There are a lot of reasons for that. But one of the foremost reasons is the fact that the state of Israel has been uniquely libeled, has been uniquely lied about. Its history has been uniquely lied about. It has been uniquely put under an international spotlight and then misrepresented in a way which I cannot think of many other countries in the world that have been treated that way. And there are deep reasons for it and shallow reasons for it. The deep reasons include some of the most ancient bigotries of the human heart, and the shallow reasons are people who don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Really?
Okay,
Yeah,
I think
before David gets his word in, bro. Okay, we got to differentiate, guys, and a lot of people who are ignorant to that region. You got to differentiate between Jews, Israelis, and Zionists, right? Three separate things, guys. Okay. Judaism is a religion. No one on planet Earth, especially not the Muslims, knowing damn well that the Muslims protected the Jews from the Romans, and they've lived under the Jews have lived under Islamic theocracies throughout history, right? Even till today, you look at the second most populous Jewish population, it's in Iran. There's no hatred of Jews or the Jewish religion in Islam or in the Arab culture, right? Israel is a different entity. That is a nationalistic identity, right? That is an identity for quote-unquote Jewish people to have a state. All right? It's a project. And Zionism is, it's more of like an economic, like, let's have hegemony over the Middle East, because we have to, return the Jews or whoever they believe the Jews are back to Israel and establish whatever. So this guy fails to do that, and most of these people fail to do that every single time. So there's this misconception that Muslims and Middle Easterns or whatever, people in that region have this huge disdain for Jewish people, which is furthest from the truth, right? Don't get me wrong, there are stupid anti-Semitic people out there that don't know their ass from their head, right? Because you can't hate Jewish people collectively. Okay. Now, Zionism, Israeli nationalism, that's a completely different thing. So he's trying to make the argument that, Hamas is going after all the Jews in the world. Like, they're going to massacre all the Jews in the world. No. Cut the shit, bro. This is an entity that has ethnically cleansed them and put them in an open-air concentration camp. I'm not trying to defend Hamas in any way or regard, right? Absolutely not. Fuck that. We don't do that shit on this channel. But we're gonna keep it all the way fucking real, right? Let's not make shit up.
think that there's look, I'm not going to speak for what every person out there believes. I don't exactly agree with like the characterization that there was no outpouring of like feeling after October 7th. And certainly like everybody I know was just like, oh my God, this is like a horrific atrocity. And like an unprecedented terrorist attack from Hamas, the worst terrorist attack in Israeli history against Israelis. And it was horrible. I think what a lot of I'm not arguing that there are no people who are actually pro-Hamas or there are no people who are actually like hate Jews or something like that. I do think that what happens is that a lot of people get put in that category who do not belong there. Much like we've seen this over the last year and a half, where a lot of people, you have John Podhoretz calling Thomas Massie anti-Semitic scum, because he said, we're dead broke. We can't afford to fund everybody else's war here. People have been calling Tucker Carlson anti-Semitic all over the place. When these are two guys, Thomas Massie and Tucker Carlson, who have never uttered the words "the Jews" in their life. Like they're just not anti-Semites at all. So there's a lot of people, I think, who are, when they're critical of the Israeli government's response to this, get lumped in as pro-Hamas. I will certainly say
they weaponize anti-Semitism. They weaponize that word.
That's certainly not my position. I think your description of them, death cult, by the way, the same term that Daryl Cooper used to describe Hamas, I think is an accurate one.
Justified.
And it was horrible. But I think that I think that your characterization, first of all, of that they gave the Palestinians a state in 2005 is just wrong. I just think that is not at all an accurate way to describe the disengagement, which we could get into more if you want to. But first of all, I would just point out that if the two-state solution was achieved, I assume you're arguing it was taken away after that. You're not still arguing that the Palestinians have a state, or are you saying they have had a state since 2005?
They were given a state in the Gaza.
And when was it taken away?
Well, they kind of screwed it up for themselves on the 7th of October.
So you're saying from 2005 all the way till October 7th, there was a two-state solution. It had been achieved.
Well, it was another state, yeah.
Oh, okay, but that would be two states then.
No, it was another state. It was different from the PA.
Oh, shit. Okay, so this guy, so I see why everybody's going crazy over this bitch. So this guy doesn't even know the basic history of what went on. There was never a two-state solution. What is this guy talking about? Holy shit, I didn't know it was that bad. Whoa.
Okay, right, but I'm saying a Palestinian state.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's interesting about that is that this is not how any of the leaders really describe it. I mean, when Netanyahu himself is not claiming that they had already achieved a two-state solution, why are you talking about this? What happened in 2005 in the disengagement was that essentially Israel went from occupying the place to...
By the way, I think I know what he's talking about, like the Palestinian Authority, but that's like an interim Zionist-led government to pretty much govern the people in the West Bank. They're actually pro-Israel. Like they're not... It's not like anything that represents the Palestinian people.
Surrounding the place. And they've had it under a brutal blockade since 2007. And yes, you were right that it was...
Why do you... I don't agree the blockade was brutal by any means.
You don't think the blockade of Gaza was brutal?
I mean, how brutal do you think the Egyptians are?
Pretty brutal.
Yeah. And by the way, the reason why he's frustrated, guys, is he's on payroll to make these people look good. And it's so hard. It's so hard when you got somebody who kind of knows the facts. It doesn't take a genius to figure out like what's going on. It doesn't take a genius to figure out this is an ethnic cleansing, genocide, blockade, siege on 2 million people. But so this guy's trying really hard now to not, look as bad as he's looking right now. So let's get into it.
They allowed stuff in.
Okay, I mean, since some stuff has gotten in, yes, that's true.
More than some stuff.
Okay.
More than some stuff.
Okay, I'll say this, right, because there's been different levels of blockade, even before 2007, going back. I know in 1996, they had like a pretty strong blockade that year. According to the World Bank, it contracted 40% of the GDP of Gaza. So just for reference, the Great Depression was a 30% contraction. This was in 1996. For 1 year, they gave them something worse than our Great Depression. That was just 1 year. From 2007 on, there's been a blockade of that country. You don't think that's kept the country poor?
Why do you think there's a blockade of any kind?
Why is there a blockade? Well, I mean, the argument from Israel would be...
No, why do you think?
I would say, okay, I think that the disengagement, I think Smotrich was correct when he said that. I'm sorry, my mistake there. I think which another quote that I'm sure you're familiar with, but Dov Weissglaff, who was the senior advisor to Sharon, was the prime minister at the time. He essentially said the reason we're doing the disengagement, the reason we're doing this is so that we can put the peace process in formaldehyde. This is the reason we're doing it.
You're not answering my question. You're
Yes,
continuing
no,
to cite
I'm getting
very
there.
right-wing
Right, they
Israel.
sabotaged every peace process they tried to make. They killed Yitzhak Rabin before the radical Zionist people who are in control of Israel now. They killed Yitzhak Rabin, who agreed to a two-state solution. And for the longest time, it's always been Netanyahu and his Zionist, crazy, religious, whatever, extremists, whatever you want to call them, right? Who think that it's like completely justified to massacre Amalek, because they do quote scripture. They think that that's completely justified. And these are the people controlling Israel now, right? So let's not act like, everything was all roses and daisies.
Israeli politicians. But what do you
I'm
think
getting
is
there.
the reason?
I'm getting there. I'm saying, so I think they disengaged in order to kill the peace process. I think they put the full blockade around the country for the reason that they've always kind of done it there, that, yeah, they don't want too much stuff getting in. They want to keep them, as they put it, on a diet, and they don't want rockets to fly into Israel.
The second one is a kind of important one, isn't it? The final
Yeah,
one you said.
it is.
If the Palestinian leadership in Gaza after 2005 had not from the get-go decided to use Gaza as a stockpiling place for rockets to fire into Israel, all of it would be different. If they had just resisted the temptation that so many of us do in our lives to stop keeping RPGs in our cellars and then Katyusha rockets in our children's bedrooms, all of it could have been different. If that desire to live in peace beside your neighbors had superseded the desire to stockpile rockets, it would all be different.
Yeah, or if
And
Israel
what
just
you
hadn't
describe
occupied
as-
them for 60 years, it would all be different too.
They
I mean,
weren't
why is it the onus
occupying-
always
they
on
weren't
them?
Well, you believe in self-determination, I'm sure. Yes.
I believe in individual rights. Yeah, sure.
Okay, individual rights. And that includes the right to make bad decisions.
Sure.
Yes. The Palestinians in Gaza, when they voted in Hamas, made a very bad decision.
Yeah, of course,
and
Douglas.
In the
but
years,
but,
hang on,
Yes.
hang on. And in the years after that, they made bad decision after bad decision. It was a very bad decision to continually fire thousands of rockets into Israel. It was a very bad decision to use what boats came in early on and to use the smuggling networks from Egypt, not to bring in supplies you could actually build a thriving society with, but to bring in rockets. It was a very bad idea. No, there was not starvation in Gaza after 2005. No, there was no deficit of goods coming in. I've been plenty of times.
There was no deficit?
No, there are plenty
No goods were kept out.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the?
Okay. Just to address a few points here, guys. The reality of it is Israel created Hamas. They funded them through the Muslim Brotherhood. They knew that they were smuggling Katyusha rockets and all these weapons from the Philadelphia corridor in Egypt to Gaza simply for a possible war. Obviously an obvious war with Israel. Even Ehud Barak, who's the former prime minister of Israel, came out and said that they built their tunnels for them. They engineered the whole thing. They wanted to create a wedge between the Hamas and like the West Bank Palestinian Authority, so that way there's this constant like rivalry going on, so they can't come with a legitimate reason for a Palestinian state, because no one's going to give Hamas a Palestinian state, right? No one, not even the UN or anyone in the world. But maybe they might have a shot with the Palestinian Authority, right? So Israel wanted to prevent that, and Netanyahu and his minions funded these people. They gave them all types of money all over Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood and the CIA. So this is all, it comes full circle. Is that sponsor, backstab, sponsor, backstab, sponsor, backstab. Same thing they did in Iran. Same thing they did in Iraq. They sponsored the Mujahideen. They backstabbed them. You know what I mean? So it's the same scenario going on. And that's the reality of the situation. Like, they allowed this shit to happen, just like they allowed a few other events throughout our history to happen, right? Especially the big old attack on the towers. So it's a constant, repetitive pattern
Crossing
here.
points.
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been.
Uh-oh.
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you can.
Well, right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots
very...
of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so I
if
don't
you're
know
going
what
to
the...
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
all right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an expert,
Well, you have to go and touch the ground. To
no,
be
I
able
think
talk
you have
about
to
it?
see. I think it's a good idea to see
Even
stuff,
Joe Rogan's
particularly if
like-
you
Okay.
spend a career talking about something.
Jeez, even
Yeah,
Joe Rogan's like, this is an illogical argument. Like, what?
I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
okay.
It's
But that's
sort of
not
normal. It's a normal thing to do. You're talking about. Hang on. You're talking about crossing points, and not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. Again, I
How
think this is
can
a
you-
non-argument.
Hang
I
on,
don't understand.
No, it's not a non-argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a non-argument if
my
you're
God.
insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, about the provisions going into Gaza or not, if you've never seen any of this going on.
So you're not
That's
allowed to
amazing
speak
to
about
me.
things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
You can talk about what you...
That's such an illogical argument. I'm going to tell you guys why. Let's say somebody that comes here to visit in California, right, and he's seeing Hollywood, he's seeing Sunset Boulevard, he's seeing all the bright lights, he's seeing all the fun shit you could do, right? And then he goes back home and tells everybody, yeah, everybody in Los Angeles has it good. People are living their lives. They're, having fun. There's a lot of shit you could do. But you don't actually go and talk to the people who are homeless, who are drug-ridden, who are living in poverty, who have it tough here. The average Californian can't even afford rent, right? But he's not going to know that because he's on Sunset Boulevard, seeing all these rich, happy people everywhere. Dude, what the fuck do you get? Like, so you're saying if you visit a state or country, you're going to have you're going to be more qualified to talk about what happens there versus you going on Google and literally searching up like the poverty rate and the unemployment rate in California, which is surging, right? And you're like, oh shit, it looked like everybody was employed there when I went there. Yeah, motherfucker, because you were on Sunset Boulevard. You know what I mean? Fuck, come on, bro. Like, this is the most illogical argument ever, dude. You know what I mean? Like, dude, he's trying to save space because, again, he's on payroll and he looks so fucking bad.
As you're proving. But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit whilst developing all of these views about it. I mean, now I slightly get an idea of where you're coming from. You've read about this blockade, and so you imagine that that's what it is. I imagine you've read all the people who say that Gaza was a concentration camp, and you probably think that too. Am I right?
I mean, again, literally a concentration camp. It shares a lot of similarities, I would think.
Wow. Well, as I say, you can't time travel
Let's go
back to the
back to the
Nazi era.
let's
but
go
you
back to
could
the
go
blockade.
to the Middle
Okay.
East and actually visit it.
Okay,
It's
the
not
World
hard to
World
do.
Bank said in 1996 for the
Now
1
the
year of the
libertarians
blockade.
are quoting the World Bank. I love it.
It doesn't mean anything. This is a non-argument. Yes, I'm saying the World Bank did their own analysis of this, and they said that
Why
it was a
don't
40%
you do your
of the,
own analysis?
Hold on. You
Jesus,
got to
that
stop
was-
interrupting
Okay.
and let him finish
I
the
will.
sentences.
The
Fire
World
away.
Bank said that 40% drop in the GDP of 1 year due to the blockade. And there's been a blockade from 2007 on. So are you saying that this hasn't had an economic effect? Is that the argument?
No, of course it'll have an economic effect.
So you're saying
But-
you have to be on the ground and do an audit of the blockade
No.
in order to be able to
I
comment
think
on
you
it?
should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region. Yes, absolutely.
And the only way
Absolutely.
to do that is to be there in person.
I think that's the best way. It's not the only way, but it's the best way, for sure. For sure. If you have never seen the countries in question, you've never spoken to the people in question, you've never interviewed anyone, you've never gone around, you've never seen the terrain, and so on, and you've used Wikipedia, I'm sorry, no, that's not the same thing.
Okay, well, I've not just used Wikipedia, but didn't you write a big piece when the war in Ukraine first came out titled something like, I've been to Ukraine and they can win, they can repel the Russians? So you could go there and still get it wrong, right?
No, I was with the Ukrainian armed forces in 2022 when they were retaking territory from the Russians.
Right, the last time
What
they
happened now?
had any advances, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
and I said I can see how they can win, which would be advances like that, yeah.
You said if we just fund them, or if we just arm
I
them,
didn't
that
say
they can then
I said,
they can
I said
repel.
that the Ukrainian army was making great successes, which it was when I was with them in the fall of 22.
Okay, listen, there were lots of people who went to Iraq and said, we'll be greeted as liberators, and it'll be paid for in oil, and democracy will spread through the region. So I don't know. Either take on the arguments or don't, but I don't think
but your argument's incorrect.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, then present a counter argument to it. But to just tell me I'm not allowed to talk about something because I'm not an expert.
I'm not saying you're not allowed to
okay,
talk
fine.
about
Well, you're
it.
not
I've
an
said
expert, so you
repeatedly,
shouldn't
you're
talk
talking
about
about
it. You
it now.
haven't been there. Yeah, I know. But you keep playing this game where it's like the whole opening to this podcast was like the non-experts talking about this is such a problem. Now you're saying because I haven't been there, I can't talk about it. Is there a blockade there that's causing economic devastation or not? According to the World Bank, there is.
First of all, I don't think it's a game. I don't think it's a game at all.
Me neither.
I'm not playing a game. Okay,
but this is semantics.
No, but this is important. I've seen plenty of this up close. I've seen plenty of this with my own eyes because I do believe that one of the things you should do if you're talking about something is to see it.
Yeah, you've established that.
Okay,
Is
but
there a
that's-
blockade?
The blockade that existed, to the extent it existed, was a blockade to try to make sure that the Israelis and the Egyptians knew what materials were going in and out of Gaza after the first rocket fires, when Hamas, in fact, before Hamas was elected. The Israelis and the Egyptians didn't do a very good job of it, were meant to be trying to make sure that the materials that went into Gaza were not materials that could be used to build up the Gazan Hamas war machine. The reason why trucks get searched is not because the Israelis want to search through grain or flour. It's because they wanted to stop the trucks containing the arms and the munitions that the Gazan Hamas and Islamic Jihad fighters were going to use to fire against Israel. And I'm sorry, it just makes the most obvious strategic sense. As the late great Joan Rivers once said, if as an appeal to authority.
That one I'll allow. That one I like.
She also said that Michelle Obama's a man.
Yeah, I know she did that.
No, I'm saying she
That
got
seems to
everything
be
right.
funny.
We don't care what Joan Rivers said. So, yeah, guys, I mean, human rights and international law have called the blockades illegal in the form of collective punishment. So it restricted flow of essential goods, contributed to economic hardship, limits Gaza's freedom of movement, land, sea, air blockade, isolated territories, open air prisons. Like, come on, bro. Right? Come on. Like, who are you bullshitting? And see, when they try to bullshit guys, because he's scared about them taking him off their payroll, because he looks so bad in this interview here, using illogical arguments and shit. And I mean, you can just like scroll through the damn comments, bro. They are firing this dude's ass up, straight up. They are firing his ass up, and let's not bullshit each other. You can't bullshit a bullshitter, man. People are gonna smell bullshit, and I mean, I don't know I don't even really know his history, but I mean, the guy probably lost whatever sponsorship he had, bro. Anyways, man, let me know what you guys think in the comment sections down below, man. Like, comment, subscribe. You have a great rest of your day, man. Peace.